Hello again everybody and a very warm welcome back to the channel. Today we're taking a look at the flybywire A380X, recently released in an alpha state for Microsoft Flight Simulator, and today we begin our tutorial series. So we're going to dive straight into episode 1, cold and dark through to engine start. So here she is, in the murkiness of Heathrow, the Airbus A380 from our friends at Flybywire Simulations. Today we're going to take it for a very short positioning hop from London Heathrow up to Manchester. Currently we're on the 560 stands, 565 to be precise. They're some of the only stands available at London Heathrow for parking, and there's one stand that we're going to use at Manchester. We'll go into taxiing the A380 in episode 2. I'll share the route down in the description below, of course, as well as always, and the link to the Flybywire Simulations website. If you haven't yet installed this, it is freeware. You can give it a go, and if you haven't checked out our virtual airline, it's one of the fastest growing communities in flight sim. Go check out Osprey Airways over on our website, britishafgeek.com. So, size, this thing's massive, absolutely huge, so we have to bear that in mind during taxi, but also during boarding it's going to take a little longer. The sim doesn't actually support anything beyond one jetty connection, as you can see here. We're going to dive straight into the flight deck, and as you can see, as we said at the beginning of the intro, we're in a cold and dark state. A really nice flight deck environment here on the 380. And before we do anything, we're going to turn our attention to the EFB. So we're going to click it, turn it on, and this is where we're going to put in our sim brief information or our Navigraph accounts as well. So we're going to press the cog, third party options, and then if you have a Navigraph Unlimited subscription like I do, you're going to link your account there. That's going to activate OANS, which is the taxiway chart system in the nav display, and you can also pop in your user ID from SimBrief as well if you wish. And then you can go ahead and set up all of your various things based on your own personal preference. Realism for ADRS time, for example, we could pop that on fast just to speed things up. And if you've got a separate tiller, you can toggle that on and separate that as well. Going to go ahead and just amend the engine out, etc. to 1,000 feet above ground level. And then we're going to go to Sim Options, and we're going to go to Throttle Detents and press Calibrate. Now I've got a Honeycomb Bravo, and it's entirely up to you how you want to set this up. I've actually set up engines 1 and 4 together on my physical bit of hardware. So for my Honeycomb Bravo, I've got the speed brake on that first kind of throttle slider, then engine 1, then engine 2, then the flap lever. So I've linked engines 1 and 4 together, and 2 and 3 together, because in reality, for taxi out, I might use engines 1 and 4, for example, and not 2 and 3. And leave those on idle. But depending on how you want to set that up, make sure your keybinds are set in the msfs keybinds menu for your throttles, whatever hardware you've got, and make sure, like I have, I've toggled off reverser on axis and selected 2 axes for throttles. Depending on how many you've got and whether you've got a reverser, you'll need to obviously toggle that accordingly. And then just go ahead and set all of your relevant click spots, like so. Make various changes, and I like the deadband. Selection being 1, and once you've had a little fiddle and sorted it out, make sure you save and apply any changes that you make. Then we're going to go back. So that's all done. With SimBrief being linked, we can import our SimBrief data. So there's our route for today. If you guys want to copy that, then feel free to pause it for a few seconds and make sure it's synced up with SimBrief. We're departing Heathrow on 09 right, and we're going to arrive into Manchester with some slightly better conditions onto runway 23 right. And our cruise altitude, flight level 180, it's a fairly standard route and a fairly standard cruise altitude for this sector. And our diversion of alternate is Dublin. Dispatch page shows your OFP. We're going to go to the little lorry, and from here we can set fuel. Just press instant, press play if we want to, and to payload as well, we can get that kicked in. But before we do that, we're going to bring some power to the aircraft. So external 1, external 2, external 3, external 4, battery 1, battery 2, central battery, APU battery, and then we're going to begin the ADRS alignment process already. So 1 nav, 2 nav, 3 nav, and then like Airbus, typically make sure you've got no white lights. There's one right at the top there as well. NSS data to avionics, and crew oxygen supply on. Nav lights on because we've got power to the aeroplane. Standby compass, we can pop that on. Emergency exit lights armed. No mobile phones, we can pop either on or auto, and seatbelts on to automatic. But actually, we can put them on now if we wish, because we've already refueled, and there's the chime. And then we've brought the aircraft systems to life. Now this is very different to the A320. There's a lot of touchscreen devices for us to use, and it does require you to get your head around a fair few differences, to be fair. But for now, we're going to go back to the EFB and we're going to start the boarding process. Now if you have something like GSX, like I do, then feel free to go into your GSX menu and begin the request boarding process. We're going to skip that for the purposes of today. Make sure we've got HPA set, that matches the standby instruments there in the centre. And we can press CL for checklist. So, cockpit preparation, we can tick to go into that menu, and we can make sure that's all set. So we can tick through each one. Gear pins and covers removed. Fuel quantity, we've already checked that in the EFB. And we can go ahead and just press B to sync with the current QNH, like so. Tick. Cockpit preparation complete. And then from there we've got the before start checks. We can get rid of the checklists for now. Now while all of that is going on, we can turn our attention to the center left pedestal display unit, which is previously where the MCDU in an A320 would have been. Basically the same thing but touchscreen. And you can either click the menu and select the pages you wish, or you can press these buttons down below here. So pick your preference. And we're going to go straight to the init page, and we're going to press company flight plan request. Going to now download our flight plan, and when it's done it will change to received company flight plan. We click again, press insert, and you can see there our call sign, flights, details, departure, destination, alternate. And with that done, we can go to IRS, and you can see there that is already aligned. We can press return. Fuel and load. Now as features progress, we might see the fuel planning page begin to develop further, so that might become a function that's available in the future. If it does, you should click that and it should give you your kind of block fuel planning and things. But all of the other details typically will be in here. So we can take the planned weight, zero fuel weight 336.1. And you can actually just type with your keypad, press enter, or you can use the keys down here and press enter. Zero fuel weight centre of gravity, it's targeting 35.4. I'll show you the other way. 35.4, enter, and our block fuel for today. We're actually taking 32.2 tonnes with us to Manchester. So I'm going to pop that in like so. Now taxi fuel, I'm typically going to increase that to sort of 0.4. Got 4 engines, a lot of fuel burn on the ground. Keep it simple for your first flight, and you can learn the rest over time. So IRS is done, fuel load is done. We can't do takeoff performance yet until we've sorted the flight plan. So we've already done the init page, which is the one we're on at the moment. If we press flight plan now, we've pulled in that Simbury flight plan data, and you can see all of the route like so, and you can press these down arrows and up arrows to move through the page. So we're going to go ahead and just click on EGLL, and we get a whole load of options. We're going to select departure, runway 09 right, and SID. Is the OLTIB 1 Juliet departure. Temporary flight plan. We can see there that that looks pretty good. And actually, if we now go to the chart, so you can see what to expect there. So after departure, 2 DME turning up, 050 degrees to the outbound radial of 070 from the London VOR 113.6, and then following that out to 10 DME London. We'll no doubt be at 6,000 feet by that point, and then turning northbound, which is actually also on the radial of 329 degrees outbound from the Biggin Hill VOR, working out towards waypoint OLTIB at 6,000. Now there's a constraint there at 6,000. We're just going to intercept 6,000 and carry on through the climb today. So I'll show you it level off in managed climb, and then we'll intervene and request another climb after that before we cross all of those constraints. So because that's all good, we can go ahead and insert temporary plan like so. And you can see there OLTIB flight level 60 as a constraint on the box. When it comes to maybe changing constraints in the future, folks, whether it be for descent or otherwise, on your flight plan, all of these are clickable. So what you can do is just select one, go into it, and then change the data. In the alpha, it's currently not a feature that's working particularly well. And because this is a very short route, we're going to go straight in and put our arrival into Manchester into the box as well. So we're going to go down to EGCC, select that, select arrival, choose runway 23 right. ILS 23 right is the approach we're going to be doing via none, and the star is the ELVOS 1 mic. Temporary flight plan. And then we have that discontinuity there for good reason, because again on the charts, if we go to the ELVOS 1 mic, you can see it routes ELVOS, Trent, Cushy, max 250 knots, down to flight level 80 at Dane, max 230 knots. But then there's a discontinuity, and that's because in real life from here, as you may have seen in other tutorial sectors that we've done on this particular routing, we have to self-vector towards the ILS, because in real life air traffic control would vector the aircraft onto its final approach course. So we've got to kind of work the problem ourselves. We'll be coming in kind of about up here and out. And it will make more sense as we get closer. And because of that, we're going to leave the discontinuity in. If you ever see a discontinuity, it's there for a reason, so you have to understand the reasons why it might be there. And we're going to go ahead and insert that, so it goes green. Done. Now, if you're flying on VATSIM, this is probably the point at which you get your clearance for departure, if you've not already done so. And you're going to be given a squawk code. You can either press the display unit and select surveillance, like so, and that will open up your transponder page, or you can press serve as a button just below the screen, and it will bring up your transponder. You can click in the box, and you can pop in whatever squawk code you might have. You can pop it on automatic there as well, and you can toggle alt report on or off. This is also where you select your TCAS, so as we taxi for takeoff, we start the lineup, we're going to pop that on TARA, and you'll see that in the next episode. And then we're going to go to our performance page. So, back to FMS1, we've done our flight plan, we've done the fueling and loading, done the init page, now we have perf. And this is where we have a little bit of an issue. We have to do a bit of problem solving ourselves. So there is no performance calculator currently available for the A380 in the sim. So what we have to do is, thankfully, turn to our trusty sim brief, like so, and we're going to open the side panel and press Performance and Tools, populate from last flight, and you can see it's pulled in the relevant data there. Going to pop that onto proper values, meters and hectopascals. And improve climb disabled. Calculates, and you can see there that's the performance calculations that we've been given. So we're going to put all of that now into the aircraft display unit. So V1 of 141, rotate 143, V2 148, flex 66 degrees, and flaps 1. So 141, 143. Naturally, if you're flying long haul, you're going to be particularly heavy, so you're going to use a lot more of the runway. Your V-speeds will be a bit higher, and your flap settings might be different too. Flex 66, enter. And THS4, that purple value there, 37. And that should then agree with the data in the aircraft, and you won't get any warnings. Thrust reduction altitude, so in the noise abatement procedures, if it's 1500 above ground level or 1000 as we're doing today, make sure that's set, and you can set your transition altitude there as well, like so. If you're going to be flying with an intersection departure, very unlikely in this aeroplane to be fair, then takeoff shift can be popped into that box there, and that's telling the aeroplane how many meters in front of the threshold or the start of the runway that you are going to begin your takeoff roll. And then in the climb page we can have a look at cost index. It's giving us our calculated speeds below 10,000, 250, and then econ climb above 290 up to Mach 801 conversion, and then in the cruise buzzing along at Mach 0.82. Descent page, Mach 8.4 equating to 276, and then we have the approach page, which we'll fill out later in that very short period of time in the cruise that we have. But that is everything done. So init page is completed, surveillance page, transponder page is completed, and we've done our flight plan, we've done the departures, and we've had a little look at those on the charts. And we've now done our performance page as well. We can see all the boarding is complete. A couple in the upper, mostly in the lower. Fueling is done. And we've got currently just that door open. So that departure that we mentioned a little earlier on, we've got the initial climb up to 6,000 feet. So we're going to go ahead and pop that on the FCU now at 6,000. And we can turn the flight director on, that's in the center stack. Make sure the QNH and everything is done. And if you want to change any lighting, by the way, you've got a little dial there. And another one for there, it controls screen brightness for the FCU. And that'll be the illumination of the backlighting. You've got your toggles for your display unit brightness. And then down here, display unit brightness toggles alongside this kind of status stack. And then at the bottom below the chair, you've also got the integrated lighting dials, main panel floodlights, pedestal floodlights, and then ambient light, which is a very good one to use depending on the scenario that you've got with weather, lighting conditions, and so on. So we're going to tick constraints, and we're going to now have a look at OANS. So this requires a Navigraph Ultimate subscription, but if you don't have one of those, go to the flybywiresim.com website, have a look at the details of how to kind of get it working manually. But we're going to go into the zoom page. While that's happening, I'm just going to turn the APU on, so master switch on. 3 seconds, start. That's now loaded, and we're getting already an indication of 565, which is our stand that we're parked at. Look, we're going to zoom in a bit more. It's loading in the charts at Heathrow, and now we know that we're going on 09 right. So if we click and drag, we've got 09 right's threshold there with the green arrows showing that that is what we've given the aircraft the data for the departure today. and you can see there where it's down 565. So push and start facing south, down on Delta, working down on Bravo or Alpha, depending on what we fancy. And then we'll go for full length. And this is really good to know because it affects the way we use brake to vacate. So if you wanted to have a little look at, for example, Manchester, you can click on Manchester, press display airport, and it will bring up the other bits. We'll do that element of it in the cruise, so you can see how we set up brake to vacate in a future episode. But it's an amazing feature in the aircraft. Really, really incredible. APU's available, APU bleed, packs go online. And we can work at getting the external power offline as well. So, looking at the overhead, we've got no white lights except for one right at the top, but that's in-op, so we can't do much about that. Make sure we've got our comms ready. If you are using VATSIM, for example, COM1, COM2 do work, but you need to make sure that you've got the volume selected for VHF3 as well in order for it to work. If you wanted to transmit using COM1, you've got to make sure the little green light is on. For changing frequencies, by the way, you can select the box. For example, if I do this one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just as an example, fingers, click it again to submit, and then you press the left button to switch across. 1215's guard, so we can pop that on and have a little listen. You can see there the speaker shows that we're actively listening to it. If I needed to communicate on it though, we can just switch that across to VHF2 like that. Very cool. Checklists. Before start. Now at this point we're going to go to GSX and we're going to prepare for pushback and departure. If you're going to pushback using the EFB, then head over to the little lorry page, go to the pushback menu and begin the prep for your pushback on there. So before start, parking brake is set. There it is, pulled and turned. So we can tick that box to select that as complete. Takeoff speeds and thrust checked. We've just done that. Beacon light will go on green automatically, so if I pop that on now, you'll see that that's now gone green and the checklist is complete. And then we have the after start checks, so we don't need that just now. What I am going to do, however, is I'm going to use the second FMS to display the flight plan, giving the captain the performance page on this side for us to utilise for the departure. Because it's Airbus, it's incredibly logical, so if we just quickly look at the overhead panel while we've got a moment. Fast suppression at the top, APU on the left, engines on the middle. You've got an extra comm unit on the right hand side. Beginning on the left panel, ADRS, down to flight control systems, oxygen, crew calls. And then below the main centre kind of fast suppressants, we've got the hydraulic panel, the big fuel panel there as well, followed by the massive electrical panel, our air panel for our pressurisation, our packs, our APU bleed, anti-ice and engine start, parking brake released, cabin pressure page for manual selection if you need it, then lights, and then on the right other flight control kind of backup modes, cargo vents, and the manual engine start selector switches there. So engine start, ignition mode starts, looking down at the panel, and we're going to go to engine master 1, engine master 4 on. Packs go off, aircraft goes silent, and we get the display in the centre lower display unit, giving us the engine page now by default. N2, N3's rising. We're going to see the fuel flow rise shortly. You can also see the N1 at the top screen starting to go up, and we can monitor the engine start. You You can see OANS there working away wonderfully. Engine 1, Engine 4 available. Those memo pages have gone. Engine 2 and 3 master switch on. And we repeat the process. We've got some truly miserable weather here at Heathrow today, so hopefully we'll break out through the clouds for a short while. And for an aircraft this size, this is quite an intense first flight tutorial. Very short sector, but it's quite a good way of learning the aircraft. It is one of my favourite training routes to do. Hopefully you guys agree. So wait for the engines to finish and the pushback to complete. Parking brakes set. While they disconnect the tug, that's all of the aircraft engines now started. We've gone to the wheel page. We can see that we're waiting for that nose wheel steering disconnect to go off. That basically means that we've got power of the aircraft's steering again. Ignition mode back to norm. APU bleed off. Master switch off. Checklists. After start. Anti-ice as required. Pitch trim set to take off, rudder trim neutral. So we're going to now go ground spoilers armed, lift that up, rudder trim 0, reset 0, flaps 1. Working up, they're already on idle anyway. Rejected takeoff, brakes armed. The FCU's checked as well, so we know that's all good. And we're just going to make sure we push up there to select manage mode for speed, so we get the lines like that. And then we're going to do our takeoff trim. So, depending on what keybinds you've got, you want to now move your trim till it goes green. And if you don't quite set it as you want it to, you get a pitch trim FMS centre of gravity disagree. So we're going to keep it going until it matches that magenta button. Like so. And if we now press takeoff config, we get takeoff config normal. We can complete that after start checklist there. Now taxi checks. Flight controls, flap settings, radar on, and there's our takeoff memos shown as well. So we're going to get the stick and we're going to roll all the way left, check all the deflections of all of our surfaces, back to neutral, all the way right, back to neutral, fully rear on the elevator, neutral, forwards, neutral, rudders, full deflection left, full deflection right, ready. We can go tick. Flap settings, we've got 1+F, there it is below the PFD, and the radar we'll select on now, like so. And there you have it, cold and dark through to engine start in the Flybywire Simulations A380X for Microsoft Flight Simulator. Hope you found it useful. Hit like, hit subscribe, share any tips you might have as well down in the comments section below. Join us for episode 2 as we focus on taxi, takeoff, climb through to cruise. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Take care.